Здравейте, скъпи приятели! Вие сте с вашия любим консервативен YouTube канал, а именно Консервите. И в този епизод, в това видео, ще проведем едно интервю с автора на ето тази книга, която аз прочетах наскоро, която ми беше препоръчана. Книгата се казва Архипелагът Епстийн. И в нея се разказва за живота на Джефри Епстийн, за неговата дейност, неговата цел и показва много повече от това какво е бил Джефри Епстийн, защото на нас ни е казал, Джефри Епстийн е просто един така човек, който има увлечение към млади момичета, но всъщност той е бил много повече от това. Той е бил нещо като един от върховете на една пирамида за власт, пирамида за превръщане на хората в роби, мога да кажа, според книгата. Тя е от издателство Изток-Запад, може да видите, и може да я намерите на сайта на издателство Изток-Запад. Ще оставим линк в коментарите. Моят гост днес е Игор, с него ще говорим на английски, но ще има субтитри, които може да си включите и може да прочетете какво се говорим на български, ако не разберете. Igor, hello. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Hello, здравствуйте.
Здравей. Igor, as I mentioned in the introduction, it was said in the mass media that Epstein was the PDF file. That was his what he was presented to us as. But from your book, I understood that he is so much more. Can you tell us, in your opinion, what Epstein was or what Epstein is?
Yes, you're right that it's now generally accepted and it's widely distributed that Jeffrey Epstein was kind of a lonely monster who corrupted everybody and everything he touched, and he lured hundreds of girls to his island, and he lured hundreds of politicians and businessmen and top figures also to his island. And so he was kind of an evil genius, and also all his life, as it's presented, it's been presented always like a kind of a chain of accidents, lucky for him always. So, so I felt from the beginning that something is wrong in this picture. And when you study it carefully, the Epstein environment, his biography, his life, then you absolutely come to the conclusion that it's not right. This viewpoint of his being lonely monster, and it's of course it's the Americans, they always prefer throughout the modern history to present people like Lee Harvey Oswald or whoever killed their presidents and other figures as lonely persons that concocted somehow their crimes. But in fact, it's not right also, for example, to think that the JFK murder was an affair of one person. So what I discovered was that starting from the beginning, starting from the character of Epstein as he is presented in the media, they give us a wrong picture, because they always say that he was a genius, in music. But I couldn't find any evidence of his genius, playing, performance something. And also he was, frankly, he was illiterate. There is no even a proof that he was literate, that he could write without
You could write,
mistakes.
yeah.
No proof of that even. And of course, having this illiteracy, of course, he couldn't finish even some prestigious school or university. He was a dropout. We know that, and but not because of his geniality, but because of his inability to complete the course. So, and also for everyone to listen to, there is an interview by Steve Bannon, conducted by Steve Bannon, one of the closest persons to Donald Trump.
He was basically an architect of his first mandate. He was they called him the shadow cardinal of the MAGA movement.
Yes, and it was very strange that I think it was in 2018 or about that date, very like a few months or a year before the arrest of the latest arrest of Epstein, Steve Bannon, for some reason, decided to conduct a very long interview, like for 2 hours. And it's impossible to listen at all, but I listened to like 40 minutes of it. And Bannon asks Epstein questions as if Epstein really was a financial genius, but the answers witness that he could barely explain the work of banks or very simple things. So from that interview, I realized that this media, bubble created around Epstein is completely wrong. And so if you after all we know, after all we could dig up into, we understand that, my opinion personally is that who Epstein was, of course, he was not a lonely person. He was kind of a coordinator or administrator of a network, and probably he was even groomed for this position from quite early. Probably not from the childhood, but this episode when he was accepted to this very prestigious school, Dalton School.
Where he was a teacher in mathematics.
Yeah, not having any diplomas.
Yeah.
Not having graduated from any good college or even a college at all. And it's impossible because other people who applied for the same positions, they usually graduated from very top colleges or universities in the United States. So there is a reason to believe that this director of that school, who was Donald Barr at the time, who worked for OSS. OSS is a predecessor of the CIA, and he kept administrative positions at Columbia University, a very prestigious university in New York. And so probably he ran some kind of a network already of persons useful for the intelligence community, I would say. I'm not sure how, what service he was attached to.
I'm sure it's more than one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, in the middle of the 70s, as I explained in the book, they needed people in New York where, it was a center of some kind of dissident circles in the States, many left-wing people and hippies and
art
people
circles.
Outside the system, and also the city itself was in a very we might say dire straits, very heavy financial debt, and even the city went bankrupt or was very close to it. I mean, at the last minute, the banks saved the city, but in exchange, they were given powers over first economic decisions and then general policies of the city of New York. And from that moment, it begins this creating a city for billionaires out of New York City. And of course, the such persons as Donald Trump start the business of building these establishments and buildings for the rich. So, and they needed to somehow to corrupt those who could be in the way of their plans, especially intelligent people. They, of course, they provided. It's very known. It's that they provided drugs. They provided all kinds of things that helped them to lead those people out of the kind of social protest, and I think they needed people to finance these activities, to somehow secretly hand the money to this person, to that person. And I think Jeffrey Epstein from the beginning was a person who was engaged in this type of activities in artistic circles, in among artists and painters and modern artists. And also, like when he's described as a person who attracted young people in his school by his knowledge or by his reason, or it's very funny because all the descriptions I came into reading the investigations by the New York Times and the very established publications show him as a person, if not rejected by the pupils, but they didn't like him, and they considered him strange and unusually placed to be their teacher of mathematics. So, and I think Donald Barr, who was this headmaster, when he left his job, I couldn't find information about what kind of activities Donald Barr was engaged after that. And he lived for many, many, many years, for some decades after that. So I think he was like, he was at least one of those creators of the network. And then we can see that slowly Epstein is getting kind of closer to this position of administration of this network. And a very interesting fact that he left after his supposed death. He left the inheritance of over $500 million, and at that $577, in fact, million dollars of inheritance, and that for decades he led a very luxury style of life. And if you compare his style of life with the one which is relatively well known also, like you can compare the lifestyle of Jeffrey Epstein with lifestyle of Adnan Khashoggi, who was a trader in armaments, in weapons, who organized the selling of American arms to the Saudi Arabia and other countries. And his kickoff, his part of this deal, so he pocketed Adnan Khashoggi billions of dollars. So he could allow himself a very luxurious lifestyle. He traveled a lot, but less so than Epstein, by the way. He had a kind of a harem out of about 20 girls. And so he carried his harem with him. But he ended up in a very modest house. I mean, he spent all his money on this luxurious lifestyle. He was kind of closer to the end. He was kind of fined for some millions of dollars, but not billions. So he lost a bit, but not even a 10th part of what he owned. He lost some, but not much. And he ended up in a quite modest house, not having all these abilities to lead this lifestyle. But Epstein, until the end, he also he traveled to all kinds of places, to Paris, to Russia, many times.
To Rome to meet the Pope.
Yeah, to Rome, wherever. So he traveled all over with his friends. So he visited Russia with for the former President Clinton, Mexico, places all over the world, and having these islands. And he had to pay, like if you try to count the money he had to pay out of his pocket in cash every day, thousands of dollars every day out of his pocket. Yes. And so those money, it was never traced. There was actually, I found there was a case against JP Morgan because Epstein was considered one of the top clients of JP Morgan Chase, and they at least the legal part of his transactions counts to over $1 billion. And with that bank, with that particular bank. So he was with JP Morgan for 15 years. And of course, he had his own assistants in that bank. And I found out that some of them reported that he had this cash withdrawal of $175,000 in one day, and many more transactions like this one. But top figures from the bank also always quieted this. They yes. told, nothing happened. It's our client, make him happy, but what I suspect, I think that was only an episode with JP Morgan, the bank that covered his activities for many years. And he was always under the roof of some big financial institutions who looked the other way when he did what he did. And I just want to remind our listeners of the Watergate scandal, because the Watergate scandal, information that led to almost to impeachment of President Nixon, the information came from the principle follow the money. So when the journalist who investigated Richard Nixon and this affair, they found a check for $25,000, and they decided to trace the check, and they very fast they found out that the check was written from the person belonging to the committee supporting financially the re-election campaign of President Nixon. You know, this chain
the chain of the money.
Yeah,
yes,
the chain of transactions led them to President Nixon's chief of staff, but the actual proof that they had was only the check, you know, in some name of some person, not Nixon,
Yes.
of course, not his even some of his administration officially, but you know, some person that could be found having affairs with them and things like that. So I wonder why in the case of Epstein, where we can see a lot of transactions of much bigger sums of money in cash every day for like 30 years, and also big amounts of money spent on these properties, tens of millions to pay for this Palm Beach estate, for the Zorro Ranch,
For the island.
For the island, also $7.5 million, I think. And of course, like they claim that it's the money that came from the other participants of this circle, or I name it as a swarm, like the Epstein swarm.
Yes.
And in my opinion, of course, it's a hypothesis, but what was going on was that they created this network, this swarm, and it got financed by them, by these top figures in finances and business. Politicians probably got free ride by participating and, you know, being able to influence political decisions. But the people from the finance world, they financed this. Definitely Lex Wexner, who is one of the who paid actually from his money, these estates were paid for. I think he contributed this money to this network. It was like his contribution, and of course he's mentioned hundreds of times in this Epstein files. He participated in the orgies, and but it was very funny to see his testimony, because the senators and congressmen from the U.S. Congress visited him in his estate in Ohio, I think, in Ohio. The richest man in Ohio was here. He's still alive. He is.
Yes.
Yeah, and they asked questions, and they asked him, I mean, you gave dozens of millions of dollars to Epstein to pay for his properties, and do you consider yourself a friend of Epstein? No, no, no. We are not friends. We happen to know each other, but he was managing my home, like, the silverware needs counting and attending.
Yes.
He was counting my forks and spoons made of silver. So very, very strange, very funny. And but one thing is interesting also about these testimonies of Lex Wexner and the testimony of the Clintons, that they don't name names, they don't admit to anything. They just say that it's all by accident. We don't know anything. So, and it's probably one of the things they had to do to be accepted to this network, to kind of to have the to promise to be silent, like they do in the
Yes.
mafia.
It makes total sense, yeah. And what I think is that it's safer for them to say, "Oh, we were so stupid. He was this genius. We trusted him. We were so wrong." It's safer to say that instead of saying, "Yes, we know that he was trafficking little girls. We knew that about the orgies." They cannot admit this, and they are really good actors.
Yeah, but
They're
also, I
really
mean,
good
in all
acting.
this affair, the most surprising thing is that, as I said, they discovered, they dug out all the Watergate affair out of this check, and no one followed the money in this case. Nothing is
Yes.
heard. I mean, with this JP Morgan Chase lawsuit, some victims sued JP Morgan, and it was JP Morgan paid $300 million, and that was it. And actually, it happened after the death of Epstein, which means they still needed to cover up these affairs
Yeah.
even after his death. Why?
Probably that's my next question that I was thinking. The why could be because this network is still active, and my questions towards you is, if you have a network that is there to control the intelligentsia, as you call them, the elites, the entrepreneurs, the politicians, the art circles, the probably Hollywood, all these centers of power. If you have this network, you don't want it to be gone just because one man is gone, potentially gone. You want this network to survive, and you want this network of giant control and giant power to still be in place and to be protected. If one chain is removed, the other chains need to stay together. And do you think that this network, the swarm, is still active? And do you think we know some of the people who are on top of this network?
Um, I'm yeah. Let me explain first the term swarm I use, because swarm means something which doesn't consist of human beings or persons. So if you are a member of the swarm, you lose your individuality. You're just someone, some instrument, or some object of this swarm, not a subject. And it relates not only to those who are enslaved by this swarm, but also to the swarm itself. I think those who are part of this swarm politicians, businessmen, financiers, people of culture or science, they lose their individuality. In return, they it's also an interesting question what the swarm gives in return. But of course, I think if you want to have a certain position in political establishment, or especially in the world of finance, you have to be a member of this swarm. And it even you have to prove that you are above the law, that you can be you are one of the chosen ones. And that's what the swarm gives them. And it also it takes care of all the responsibilities that come out of the violating laws. So they could do anything, and the system, the network takes care of the consequences. So and it worked always in this in life, during the life of Jeffrey Epstein and his girlfriend Ghislaine Maxwell. And so I think I deviated a little bit from your question, so you can return me.
Yeah, I will return you. Yeah, whether or not you think that this network is still active, and if and if the people who participate in the swarm, thank you for explaining what the swarm is. It's in the book, but yeah, if the people who participate in the swarm, if they still feel like they are above the law, or if they were if they are sort of paying the consequences and now they have to lay low, because we know that the Epstein files and the whole scandal, even though it was a much smaller scandal than it should have been, in my opinion, it showed so many things on top that I think that they need to lay low for at least a while. And if you think that the network is gone, if it's active or not.
No, I think the whole network stays intact, and I can feel it from the directions they show to the media, where the media could write, could do anything about this affair. But don't touch the finances, don't touch the cash, the Epstein cash. Don't touch the probable connection between those network money and, for example, the huge amounts of cash that appeared in offshores after 1991, after the fall of the Soviet Union. So, but we'll come to that.
Yes, we'll.
I mean, also it's a very interesting question, because this network at first might be operating using this money, this unaccounted cash that came in billions of dollars from the Soviet Union and other countries of the Soviet bloc. And I'm sure that this money wasn't completely unattended. So there is some, and of course the secret services, they knew, where to find this money. They knew what offshore accounts were opened at the time. So I think the whole scale of what Epstein showed us show that hundreds of people were involved. almost in the open, and they weren't hiding very much of their activities. And but if you think of all these islands that are owned by billionaires, by those digital oligarchs like Zuckerberg, or by Larry Ellison from Oracle, they own, whole islands or parts of islands in Hawaii and near New Zealand or some other places, and they have their own rules on those islands. The rules of they have their own, even like it's interesting that Jeffrey Epstein installed two very big, huge American flags on his island to show, his patriotism. But we know that things that were going on his island, to the degree that certain girls tried to escape by swimming, trying
in
to
shark-infested waters, if I may add.
Yeah, and but his guests who got invited, they said, "Oh, what a miracle! Like, what nice girls, what nice place we can see. It's just Eden. It's something of paradise." So for some paradise, for others it was a hell. And so I think these private islands, private yachts, private pieces of territory, there is a whole infrastructure of made for billionaires that they don't even show their passports. And like, it would have been interesting to know, like when Epstein with his friends visited Russia for so many times, did they have visas? Did they have passports with them? Did they go through some kind of customs or anything like that? I doubt it very much. So there is an infrastructure for those people all over the world, these private airports. And I know, for instance, that about 10 years ago, they bought the billionaires that came out of the cryptocurrency world. They bought huge parts of Puerto Rico, like port of San Juan and the airport and the whole infrastructure, to do it for themselves, because of one reason, because the laws is much easier to buy in Puerto Rico than in mainland United States, as it was in U.S. Virgin Island, in the islands that Epstein had. So I think that it's a whole archipelago. That's why I call this book this way. It's a whole archipelago with the rules of their own, of their network, and they enforce their rules by having their private armies, having even, their private jets and everything. And what they're trying to create, in my opinion, is not only a swarm, like kind of anonymous power that would control the affairs of the world without any particular politicians or persons taking any responsibility. So it's all anonymous. Yes, the decision-making process, all that. But also, I think Epstein case shows us that they're trying to work out these methods of enslaving people and making them slaves at their own will. So it's not like for instance in this book 1984, when they torture the main character for him to accept that he loves Big Brother. They torture him for many pages. But since then, I think much more effective ways of loving or of getting you to love Big Brother has been developed. And of course, Epstein was very close to this circle, and he applied these special techniques. And he always had access to drugs. He gave drugs to his girls always, like from the 80s. So he had access to drugs from the 80s, and he never used drugs himself. He led a very healthy way of life.
He was a vegetarian, if I'm correct.
Vegetarian. He didn't drink alcohol. He never used drugs. He never did anything unhealthy.
Yeah. And you mentioned about the 1984 book, and there the main character Winston, they tortured him. But nowadays it's pleasure that is used to enslave you. And I think currently, and probably in the future, convenience will be one way to enslave you, because it's so convenient to pay with your card instead of using cash. You don't need cash. It's so convenient to subscribe to some service instead of owning your films or your music or whatever, or your software. It's much more convenient to just subscribe to it. And yeah, I think the pleasure is already old. It was Epstein's method, not just his, but the intelligence service method in the 80s, 90s, 2000s. But now I think they're slowly switching towards convenience as a method of enslavement. Yeah, and
And
I want
also
to.
what comes up to my mind, the confessions of one of his victims called Rina O. Rina O was a Korean-born artist, a painter, and she was a Epstein victim from I think the age of 16, and being in New York, she tried to make an artistic career in New York. So that's how he got
Groomed
her
her.
into his spider web. But it's interesting that he tried to obviously to convert her into his assistant. And after he repeatedly, of course, did whatever he did with his girls, all those terrible things, and he did he confesses now that sometimes he did it in when other girls were presented to show them, how to do it, like what to do, and she doesn't remember. It was like they who later described her what was going on, and she kind of lost her memory for this period. So probably she was drugged. She was given not just simple drugs, but some kind of
A cocktail.
special things that secret services use. So and then he kind of created a relationship with her, asking her to research for him the topic of harem in the Turkish Empire, and how things were under the sultans, and
how to manage harems.
Yes, and how to, and he also asked her to paint for him some pictures, to do something, and she was like, it was a creative task for her, so she was involved after that, and also she administered, some other girls coming, so some girls later accused her of she, Rina O, got them acquainted with Epstein, and it's known that he paid $1,000 for each such encounter, so in cash. So obviously she was paid. So I mean, of course she was a victim, but also he tried to create out of her and girls like her his assistance in his crime. And
can I just say that in your book you explain that really well. You call it, I believe, a multi-level marketing scheme, where these victims, they're later given the chance to become the hunters, so to speak, especially in the Florida school near his Palm Beach estate, where they receive money, they are paid if they bring new girls, and that's how his whole network of young girls grows, and
that's how he started.
And that's, you explained that this is how he sort of corrupts their soul. Yes, they are victims, but they are already they have already done criminal acts just by agreeing to bring other girls and to groom other girls, and so they cannot that easily go to the police or anything like that.
That's why we hear so few witnesses in this case, because and he corrupted everyone around him. So most of the people who were around him were involved in some kind of criminal activities, and they knew about it. And like we know the number. I mean, of course we don't know exactly the numbers, but we can still guess that his victims numbered over a thousand of girls, probably much more, but we only know some kind of about 10 or 12 girls who came forward telling their stories out of all these hundreds and hundreds of girls. And why? One of the reasons is that they led to him other girls.
And speaking about leading other girls to him, I wanted to ask you about Ghislaine Maxwell. She's still alive. She's probably, because the 6 million files that were released, they answered some questions, but there are even more questions unanswered now. And Ghislaine Maxwell is probably the person who can tell the story in full, if that's even possible. And do you think that there were some ideas that she will be pardoned if she tells the story? But there were some. Most people think that the establishment, the political establishment, does not want her to tell the full story. In fact, it was one Republican congressman, Congressman Thomas Massey, who was very vocal about the Epstein files, and it was thanks to him that we have these files see the lights of day. And do you think it will be possible for her to tell the story, tell the full story, or will she end like Epstein in some cell, probably hanging herself or not herself.
I'm not even sure that she's alive or she is what people think Ghislaine Maxwell is, because for instance, I have a reason to believe to Rina O, and Rina O, who encountered Ghislaine many times, or Ghislaine probably is better to call her. Rina told a very curious episode when Ghislaine led her into a cabinet and opened a kind of a wardrobe with all the stuff for sadomasochistic acts and things like from torture chambers, something like this. And Ghislaine told Rina that her father, Robert Maxwell, offered her when she was going to be punished, offered her to choose with what she would be punished. And so it tells us a bit more about the character of Ghislaine, who was also, I think, as a child, as a little girl, she was a victim of her own father. And so it wasn't like she came this evil character out of nothing. So of course she had a prehistory of her own. And but why I don't think we will know something from this person who poses as Ghislaine Maxwell now. Maybe she is, I'm not sure. But Rina says that she doesn't believe that this person is Ghislaine Maxwell. She knew her personally, so we have a reason to trust Rina in this case. But I think, Ghislaine knows so much. He knows so much, not only about Epstein, but also about her father, about this, the whole web of illegal activities. Her father and Epstein was involved throughout decades and connected with secret services like Mossad or CIA or MI5 or KGB for this matter also. Yes. So, so many structures in this world would be interested in her being silent forever, that I don't really believe that she's alive. I don't think. Rina, by the way, also says that she doesn't believe that the official version of the Epstein's death either, because she thinks that on photographs during the autopsy that were shown to the public by authorities, it was a different person. And it was asked, like the interviewer asked her, why didn't she tell it before? Why didn't she tell it in 2020? And she answered that still there was a possibility that Epstein was dead. And she knew that he was doing a very strange things, strange activities with his tooth.
Yeah, he had.
Yeah.
You mentioned
I
this in the
described
book.
it in the book.
Yes, and it was not like. I want to showcase something that we think of Epstein like someone who was active between 2015 and 2018, but no, he was active from the 70s, the 80s. He was active for decades,
Yeah.
decades, at least 30 years.
Yeah, I found the
and
first accusation
he
of Epstein was in the beginning of the 80s. You know,
yes
when one girl, 13 years old girl, was raped by him and by his circle. He already had a circle of his friend, so she was gang raped, and she was given drugs by Epstein. But this affair went nowhere.
Yeah,
So he
I
was
just want to
covered.
mention that he you mentioned this in the book that he had a room with a a dental chair, dental like these machines, dental machines that can change
All
your
the
teeth,
equipment.
all the equipment, and that was long before he became what we know today. So yeah,
So
that's
what?
why there are some speculations about
Yeah,
him being alive and
Rena's version is that he prepared like his teeth to be inserted in a person who would act as his body. I mean,
yes.
who would be replacing him as a dead man, and so this person should be given the same teeth as Epstein had.
Yeah.
Exactly the same. That's why. I mean, of course, it's a hypothesis, but you know, given all we know about this, it explains many things.
Yeah, like 6, 7 years ago, if you mention something about Epstein, you were called a conspiracy theorist. You were called, oh, you must also believe that the earth is flat, things like that. And now we have so little confidence in the official versions of not just the Epstein, of everything. Currently, the war in Iran, nobody believes the official version of it. And yeah, that's why even though some things might sound like a conspiracy theory, a lot of conspiracy theories have become proven in recent years. But I want to ask you something about, since I'm a Bulgarian and we're talking about the Bulgarian version of your book, about Robert Maxwell, who was the father of Ghislaine Maxwell and an associate of Epstein, who died in very mysterious circumstances uh, while traveling with his yacht. You mentioned in the book that he was close with the secret services of different Eastern European countries and that he did a lot of business. Like not legit business, but gray economy business. And there is this story here in Bulgaria. There is a picture of him with Todor Zhivkov, the first man in Bulgaria for a couple of decades. And there is also a picture of him with a T-shirt where it says "The King of Bulgarians." And there is the conspiracy theory or the theory that he helped launder the so-called red money, the so-called briefcases with money from the what he helped party members during the 90s launder their money to the West. And can you share more about this? Have you researched about his role in Bulgaria and in our society?
I haven't researched his role about in Bulgarian affairs specifically, but I think, I mean, when I was writing this book about Epstein, I almost started writing another book about Maxwell because
Mm.
this personality is very is like so many mysteries around it, and so many shadowy businesses, and so many interesting even the effects that play even now. So first, Robert Maxwell, like it's also very unusual how he became a rich man, because he became a rich man right after the war for Israeli independence, when Israel won its independence in fight with other Arab countries. And the Israelis, they needed arms, they needed guns, they needed bombs, they needed everything. And it was 1948.
Yeah.
And right after the Second World War, and the huge ammunition depots were located in Czechoslovakia, left from the Wehrmacht, from the Germans. They left a lot of machine guns, a lot of everything. And these weapons have been sold to Israel in 48, and Robert Maxwell was one of the organizers of this sale, huge sale. And I tried to find out where the money came from this sale, and the Czech sources said that the money kind of evaporated. That Czechs should have been compensated for these arms, for these weapons. So how much money, where it went, no one really knows. Some money definitely were pocketed by intermediaries. One of them was one of the main ones was Robert Maxwell. And right after that sale, and these father creators of Israel tell that only because of these guns and arms they were able to win over the Arabs that year. So actually Israel owes its independence to Robert Maxwell to a big degree. And right after that, Robert Maxwell, who was just an officer of Czech origin, he was a Jew from Czechoslovakia, from even, I think, the eastern part of Czechoslovakia, which is now Ukraine. And so in 1940, he left Czechoslovakia and went to England and became a military first soldier, then officer. But he was penniless. He didn't own anything. He was absolutely poor. And after this affair, he buys a publishing house in Germany. So right after that, it's no one can deny that. But also, it wasn't a simple publishing house, It wasn't publishing fiction books. This publishing house was related to science, and one of the kind of leading persons was a physicist who knew a lot about nuclear physics. So they focused on not only on nuclear physics, but on most recent technologies, And as many people think, those technologies, and especially these nuclear technologies, were also given to Israel to help them build the modern military and their own nuclear program. And it's it's almost a fact. It's a fact that Maxwell helped that, and it's kind of the second time he helped Israel big way. He helped create the nuclear program, and which leads me. I'm saying this because it explains a lot about the timing of the Robert Maxwell's death, because Robert Maxwell was found dead on the 10th of November 1991, and a couple of weeks before that there was published a big story by a still very respected journalist in the USA, Simon Hirsch, who has a very top sources in American intelligence and military circles. So he was and is still a very knowledgeable man, and he published a first story in the magazine and then a book about how Israel acquired nuclear weapons, atomic bomb. And it was a big scandal, of course, because it's not legit still.
Yes, it's still.
And of course, the connection between Maxwell and this affair was established very soon. And some of the members of British Parliament asked for Maxwell to appear before the commission for investigation. Why that happened? Because Robert Maxwell was not only a British citizen, he was at one time a member of parliament, and he was quite a big political figure, and he was controlling a big chunk of media, the media in the United States and in the United Kingdom, especially Daily Mirror, which was a kind of a mouthpiece of the Labour Party.
Mhm.
And so it happened only a couple of weeks before his death. So it might be one reason for his death. Another reason was also very unusual chain of unusual deaths in the Soviet Union, still in the Soviet Union, because in 1991 it was still the Soviet Union. And 26th of August 91, the person, the head of the economic activities of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, his last name was Kruchina, Nikita Kruchina, I think, or Nikolai Kruchina, Nikolai Kruchina, I think.
Mm-hmm.
He jumped out of the window. And
yeah,
he left,
fairly common.
Yeah, and he left a note also, don't blame anybody, things like that. And a month after that, in October, in the beginning of October this year, 1991.
Not this year.
Another top person in these financial circles of the Communist Party by the name of Pavlov, Gennady Pavlov, I think, also jumped out of the window. And 2 weeks after that, the third person jumped out of the window, and he was also related to the financial activities of the Communist Party. And so we count 17th October 91. This third person jumped out of the window in Moscow, and 10th of November, 3 weeks later, they found Robert Maxwell dead. And where actually I put it in a book. This episode is very also I didn't see it mentioned, but we if you try to find out real facts, and you will find this immediately, that this official version of Robert Maxwell death, it doesn't stand. It's funny.
It makes no sense. Yeah.
It makes no sense because they they say that some witnesses saw him, pissing from the board of his yacht. But if they really saw him, and then like after 5 minutes he wasn't there, of course they would have checked whether he's alive or not or something. But it never happened, and his body was discovered 100 miles from the from those way of the yacht. So it looks like he was abducted from the yacht and on board of some lesser vessel, and then thrown in the sea,
many miles
but
away.
thrown in such a way to be easily found by someone, because like it was like Atlantic Ocean.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, if you don't say
it wasn't in a lake.
Yeah, it's not a lake. You cannot. Yeah. You know, you whatever you do, you won't find it. So it looks like some team abducted him and get rid of him.
Yeah.
And that's how. But of course, who was it? We will never know. Probably was it Mossad or KGB or whatever.
Yeah, the intelligence community.
But I would say that this the whole circumstances of his death, not only are they very unusual, but like if you dig up in a little bit into financial matters, he was accused of stealing 400 million pounds from the pension fund of his own employees, but the money was never found. Also, where are all those money? Where is the party money of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union? Where is the money that Robert Maxwell pocketed? Because like in the end, he was like declared bankrupt, and I mean no money was found. So and I suspect that somehow it might relate to this money that this swarm, this Epstein network came by, because also it's very strange. There was a series of episodes by ABC, American television network, showing about the life of Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, but they insisted in these episodes for some reason that Jeffrey Epstein got acquainted with Ghislaine only after the death of Robert Maxwell, and he never knew Robert Maxwell. But it's not true. I found even in the investigation of the New York Times, the facts that Ghislaine and Jeffrey were close friends before it happened, before her father was found dead. And also, it's easy to find out that Robert Maxwell and Epstein, they knew each other, because Epstein was involved in these shadowy arms dealings in the 80s. I mentioned Khashoggi, and
Yes.
and this circle, and Maxwell was a member of that circle. And there are facts that probably Maxwell was looking for some assistant in these shadowy dealings, and probably he might have considered Epstein, but he refused. I mean, probably he found Epstein too stupid or not smart enough for this business. So he didn't like him. But they knew each other, Robert Maxwell and Epstein, and Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein. They knew each other well before the death of Robert Maxwell.
Yeah, it's curious that these I don't know how to call them, power brokers or people who are on top of certain power pyramids. There is some sort of how do I say it? Some sort of a continuation, like Robert Maxwell, and then Jeffrey Epstein becomes stronger and stronger. And
it almost looks like Epstein inherited from Robert
sort
Maxwell.
of like inheritance,
Through his daughter, like it happened in medieval times, like the business he inherited from his father-in-law almost.
And this is just, I want to give scale, like this is just one pyramid. And then let's look at, for example, George Soros and his networks, and Scott Bessent, who was the right hand of George Soros.
And by the way, let me also mention that returning to this party money, looking at the position of Robert Maxwell at the time, 1991, whatever and wherever he hid his money, but still he still needed money, big way, because to pay for his acquisitions, he bought a newspaper in New York, so he needed money, and knowing very much about the Soviet, about things in the Soviet Union, being a friend of, he was a friend of Brezhnev. He knew very well all top figures. I'm sure that he would use his knowledge of these affairs to earn some money on this party, like party gold. Also, this gold, where it is, no one knows. And I tried to, actually, in Russia, there was kind of investigation in the 90s that led nowhere, of course. And they were very careful not to step like an extra step, not to make an extra step, not to mention anyone that might, and many people were alive at the time. So, and of course, the KGB was involved very much. And we know that Robert Maxwell also had dealings with the KGB.
Yeah, well, we think that we live in a world where things like democracy and laws and international order, this is a very buzzword, that these are the things that are on top of the food chain. But in fact, there are whole other networks of power, like the shadow banking sphere, the networks of the power brokers such as Epstein and others that we even don't know, we even haven't heard of. These are people like in the Platon's cave that hold the totems and show us the shadows. But yeah, as a final question, I want to ask you something that might sound a bit provocative, but like the Watergate scandal, it led to the resignation of Richard Nixon because he was certain that he will be impeached. And it was, by today's standards, this was a fairly small scandal. Like he he didn't do. If we think in today's terms, he didn't do that much. They do this now and many more. Epstein scandal and the what we saw that his network was what we know, even though we don't know everything. This should have led to so much bigger consequences for politicians, for entrepreneurs, for business figures, for judges, for attorneys like Dershowitz, you mentioned in your book, for people, for the so-called elites. They should have seen bigger consequences. We should have seen mass protests. Which we should have seen uh, governments toppled. Instead, what we saw were a couple of resignations, and that's it. Why is that? Why does that happen? Why these huge scandals like the Epstein scandal don't have an effect? Why they just become a part in the news cycle, and then the Iran war, for example, pushes them in the sideways.
I would compare this situation with the situation that was before the French Revolution in France in the 18th century, where the elite was also very depraved, and they basically they were parasites. They did nothing. They spent a lot. They needed always new money, new things, new luxury goods. Also, they led a lot of wars. Many people have been dying every year. The situation was very much like today, but there is a difference also. And the difference is that in France at the time, there was quite a strong middle class. Those traders and rich peasants and like for instance, I read that these troops of Hussein Marseillaise, these troops from Marseille, who helped make a revolution, to help to remove the king. They were wealthy people, most of them. They were from the middle class. They were traders. They were artisans. They were not sans-culottes. They were not, these penniless persons. And they're not satisfied with the king, but they understood that the whole system needs to be changed, and that's why they didn't accept the king. The king offered them some lowering taxes, some petty things, but what they wanted was constitution. They wanted a set of rules made by themselves, with which they would agree, that so for the whole country, and they wanted equality. They wanted those rules, those laws, be equal to everybody. And that's what is different, I think, from what we see today. We all, like all countries, probably even Iran or any Eastern country, all countries have constitutions, but they're dead words. They are not really applicable anymore. And the worst of all is that people don't feel like they are equal. Like those people in France who made this revolution, they believed that people are born equal and they should be equal before the law. And now people are at peace that, those elite people, they could do anything on their islands. They could rape underage girls, and they could have any transactions which are prohibited for us. Like if one of us would withdraw some amount of money from the bank, we would be asked, like, why, what for? But if my name is Epstein, okay, yeah, you need more. Let me get a card. I will bring the money in a card. So and people are at peace with this situation. They are happy. Maybe they are not happy, but they consider it normal. And that's the worst of all, because it means that the constitutions are dead. And it also means that, like they say, that the sacred place will never get empty. So something moves in. If you reject equality, then of course comes slavery in some form. And slavery comes in a form that, as you explained, that being slave will make you a comfortable life. So you just agree not to notice. You agree not to notice what's going on up there in the political circles or financial circles, or on this island of which there is also there is an archipelago already. And let them do whatever they want, yes, and we do our daily routine. But if they feel, the elites, if they feel that they don't have any opposition, they at first they act slowly and accurately, but then more and more aggressively. And the techniques are there. The techniques of making people slaves are there. So that's how I explain. People just, it was so long time ago, then they thought for their equality, for their human dignity. And of course, you don't see even a notice of human dignity in any of the things we've discussed, like anything between like this swarm or the Epstein network, or activities between them and politicians. No human dignity in it. Just quid pro quo, or making you a slave to me, and those things.
Yeah, sadly that's true. But if I can find one piece of dignity, it's in the people like I mentioned Thomas Massey, the U.S. congressman, and in other people who they did not agree to let this topic pass by. They did not agree to because, for example, when Pam Bondi she testified in Congress, they asked her about the Epstein files, and she said, "Well, look at the stock market; it's so high. Why are we talking about this?" And they want to gaslight us, sort of to lie us that these files aren't even real. These are just conspiracy theory. We don't deserve to. They don't deserve our attention. But if there is a dignity, is that there are some people who seek the truth. I would put you as well among these people who write about this, who talk about this, and who haven't sold their soul. Because in your book, The Swarm, that you mentioned, they sell their soul to the devil in some case, because they gain power, they gain the corruption, but they become both victims and victimizers of innocent people. And there are other people who sell their soul, like, yeah, I know that I live in a corrupt world, I know that I live in a corrupt country, but let me just watch some Netflix and forget about it, and let me just drink, and let me just gamble, or something like that. This is also, in my opinion, selling your soul in some way. So yeah, thank you a lot, Igor. Thank you for
Thank
I
you for
hope
having me.
Yeah. So probably your next book will be about Robert Maxwell.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you mentioned, there is a lot of material
Yeah,
there.
you could definitely we could uncover a lot of things investigating Maxwell, and I'm
Yeah.
sure about Bulgaria too.
Yeah. I'm sure about it too. So yeah, thank you, and I will now urge our supporters. Ако ви е харесало разговора ни с Игор, последвайте консервите в YouTube, може да станете наши членове в Patreon. Отново да кажа, че книгата на Игор се издава от издателство Изток-Запад и може да я закупите, ще сложим линк в описанието. Игор има и други книги, той набляга доста на изкуствения интелект, на това, което той нарича Левиатан, нали, така, невидимия огромен враг, който е над нас, който ни контролира, който дърпа конците на света, най-общо казано. Така че разгледайте и другите книги на Игор, а не само тази за Епстийн. И ако пък искате, нали, ако просто ви е интересно, какъв е бил този Епстийн, може да си вземете тази книга, да видите цялостната му история, хората, до които се е докосвал, хората, които са го изградили, как той чрез насилие и, нали, моркова и тоягата, чрез насилие и удоволствия е превръщал своите жертви и своите партньори в едни бездушни същества, смея да твърдя. Така че благодаря, Игор, отново за разговора. Чао, до нови срещи.
Спасибо всем слушателям. Thank you for your attention.
It was a pleasure.
Ciao.